Welcome back to the Nuggets of Gold podcast and YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about, something I don't want to be talking about at all, but there's some drama going on in the 49ers, 49ers organization. Brandon Aiyuk it was stated that he was out because he was limited on a hamstring injury all week long. Now, he was limited, wasn't really on the injury report. It didn't really seem like it was a huge factor. However, there's been like a bunch of potential reports that he was late for curfew or whatever the case was. But I think what we can tell is that Brandon Aiyuk was not hurt enough to be inactive, and he was not hurt enough to have a punt return late in the game, which means that can't be all that true, because if he's too hurt to go out there and play, there's no reason that he's going to be returning punts. So my thought is that he is getting benched. He's getting benched, and he's getting benched for Trent Sherfield, basically because it's a playbook thing. Trent's out here grinding on the playbook, and for what reason, Aiyuk isn't, or there's some off the field issues, or there's some type of issues. I do not know what the issues are, but it's clear that there's something going on. And I don't know. What do you think about it, Aiden? Because I'm concerned. I mean, I you know how much I've liked Brandon Aiyuk. I have got the cards right here. I got a bunch of Brandon Aiyuk stuff. So I have all my stock in Brandon. But what do you think about the whole situation?
Yeah, I'm not super worried about it, if I'm completely honest. It looked like to me this was a guy who was limited somewhat in practice. Given that hamstring, maybe didn't practice as hard as he should have, or Kyle didn't like something about it, and then he was late for curfew. And Kyle was like, "Okay, dude, you're thinking you're too good for this. Let's bench you for basically the first half," because that's what ended up happening. However, people are like, "Oh, he got no snaps. He was benched for the whole game." That's just plain not true. He was only one snap behind Trent Sherfield. A lot of that stuff was in the second half, which is why he didn't get a target, because we were running the ball so much. And when it came down to it, when the Lions were coming back and the Niners needed one drive to get a first down, which they got, but then there was a fumble, Aiyuk was on the field. So I think Kyle still understands that Aiyuk is his most talented receiver. I think that he is the perfect buy low candidate in your fantasy leagues. After just putting up what people think is a dud, you can lie and say that Kyle hates him, that he's the new Dante Pettis, which Matt and I both think is not true. Hope to God is not true. I'm not super worried. He's way too talented. And I think that this could end up being good for him and good for the Niners in general.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've definitely seen is all the Dante Pettis stuff. All of the he's in Kyle's doghouse. Saying that he's in Kyle's doghouse does not mean that this dude is Dante Pettis or Akella Witherspoon. That is not that. It should not mean that. The reason why Dante Pettis was eventually cut, because Dante Pettis was not good. Dante Pettis is now bouncing around the league. Dante Pettis, for whatever reason, he did not translate to the NFL. Great college receiver, great at Washington. He was not a solid NFL player. And that's what ended up happening. Brandon Aiyuk has so much talent. And I get that Dante's very athletic and whatnot. Dante was not a physical player by any means. Brandon Aiyuk uses his physicality very well to get open. He's also a very long, very fast, and he's a guy that separates at an extraordinary rate. He's going to be a fantastic player in this league. And if there are some immature issues, or Kyle because I don't know if you saw this, Aiden, but I saw that some people went back and watched the 49ers documentary, brick by brick stuff. And there's no Brandon Aiyuk. And there's Trent Sherfield and there's Deebo Samuel in those, and there's no Brandon Aiyuk. So it seems like, for whatever reason, maybe it was the first offseason. Maybe it's the fact that he's playing in the NFL now and there's not COVID restrictions. But there's something going on where they feel that he's either he's being immature, or he's doing something that is potentially going to hurt the team. Going out there, doesn't know what route he's running. If you've played football and I've played football, if you go out there and for a lot of coaches, because Kyle is an old school kind of coach, like he's gonna get really frustrated if you do this. If you go up there and you don't know what you're running, and Brandon Aiyuk is doing that, and that's happening like too often, then he's going to get benched, and that's the message they're sending. Now, I also think that we don't need to freak out yet. Now, if it's week 5 and this is happening, by all means, like it's time to be very, very worried. But I think that we're going to see Brandon Aiyuk, maybe not next week, but I think we're going to see him gradually brought back into the like rotation of getting targets. Also, I don't know if you caught this kind of, but the route that Trent Sherfield ran for Trey Lance's first touchdown, that looks awfully familiar to a route that Mr. Brandon Aiyuk ran in the red zone like 5 times last year. I don't know if you noticed that. That's like literally the route that he scored on like I think 2 or 3 times last year. So we've seen it. We've seen that play, but I think that was kind of you're going to be slacking off or being immature, whatever it is. We're going to give Trent Sherfield the first touchdown of the year on your route. So it was clear that Sherfield has taken his spot. Sherfield's been a guy that's been grinding. Also, huge stock up for Trent Sherfield. Let's not try to discredit this guy for Brandon Aiyuk's going to take the spot or whatever. No, Trent Sherfield is balling out. This is very exciting. He's emerging as a legit weapon for this team. So absolutely love to see that. But I do think that the Brandon Aiyuk stuff will pass over and everything will end up being all right. I don't know when that will be, but I'm with you. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. But anything else you want to bring up about it?
Yeah, I think that you mentioned some really good things. It's not freak out time yet. Remember that he's in year 2, like similar to the sermon stuff. This stuff is going to happen. I'm not super worried. He's still super duper talented. He's not dealing with like the Jalen Hurd kind of cannot get out of his own way injury wise. It just seemed kind of like a mentality thing, and hopefully he's figured it out. And we had no problems like this last year, so hopefully he gets his head on straight. But Debo looked really, really good in that wide receiver 1 role. I think it's good for Kittle fantasy owners, at least right now. Trent Sherfield, shout out to that guy. He's a guy that I don't think we gave enough credit to. When we signed him, we were like, he's just a special teams guy. This dude is firmly wide receiver. I'll say wide receiver 3 in this offense. If you took anyone's job, it's probably Sanu's, and Sanu came out and had a pretty good offseason as well. I feel pretty good about this Niners running or wide receiver room, and that's without like a gadget guy like Hurd, and like we saw Jawan Jennings for like 2 snaps, who I also really looked good during the preseason. So I think that this is different than 2019, where the Niners had no good receivers in that room, had to trade for Emmanuel Sanders. I'm not worried about that. I think that they could sustain an injury or 2 to some of these guys and still be fine. Got some good separators, but hopefully Aiyuk gets his head on straight.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. One thing I will say though, I am not super concerned right now. I'm not freaking out about it. But if news keeps coming out and it's something where it's Kyle's just benching him because he's upset about something and they're not winning because of that, we will criticize the moves and stuff if there is something to do about that. I just don't feel like that's necessary yet. It's week 1. This is a second-year receiver that Kyle feels can be a top receiver in the league. He's talked about that so many times about Brandon Aiyuk. He thinks he can be one of the very best players in the league. I believe that as well. If it's something where Kyle's like, hey, you're not performing well, and we saw him drop a bunch of passes in preseason. You're dropping a bunch of passes. You're having all these mental mistakes. You're being immature. You're not doing whatever the case is. We're gonna rock with Trent Sherfield until you figure it out. It can be something that jump starts him as well, and very likely you might hear a few years down the road say Brandon Aiyuk is absolutely dominated the NFL, and you hear, oh yeah, that first week 1 when I got benched, Kyle talked to me. We had a heartfelt conversation. I figured out, Kittle came up to me, Debo came up to me, Sanu came up to me, those guys came up, we had conversations. I got it figured out. And, that's why I am who I am today. We could very well see that happening. So time will tell. this is definitely a situation that we're going to be monitoring. Very likely that we'll make another video, or actually, hopefully we don't, because hopefully he just comes out and he's a starter next week and it's all good. I don't know. I don't think that's exactly going to be what happens. I think that you'll slowly see more and more of him, and hopefully it gets worked out. If it doesn't, though, we will criticize, either Brandon Aiyuk or the 49ers organization for what's going down. So, but right now I don't think it's time to do that yet. So that's where I'm at with that. I think that's going to do it for this episode. I just wanted to talk about it really quickly because this is one of my favorite players, and it's really unfortunate that this happened. Cannot criticize Kyle yet, though, because this could be something that is just necessary to help Brandon out. So I think that's going to do it for today's episode, but thank you all for listening, and we'll be back tomorrow.